Can you see the screen visible?
Yep. Yes, ma'am.
What can you read?
Nervous tissue.
Right. Okay, so let us begin with the next type of tissue, that is called as nervous tissue. Okay, so nervous tissue is derived from the ectoderm. As I told you, every type of tissue is having its origin either from the outer layer, that is the ectoderm, if middle, that is mesoderm, if inner, that is endoderm. So nervous tissue is derived from the ectoderm. It exerts the greatest control over the body's responsiveness to the changing external and internal environment. Means this nerve impulses, they are very important, which are created by the nervous tissues, and they function, their function is very important because body's responsiveness is related to this tissue, where wherever they change, whether it is external or internal environment, then immediate or quick response is given to the body with the help of this tissue. It is observed. So it consists of two types of cells, neurons and neuroglia. Neurons are the impulse conducting cells, whereas neuroglia are non-conducting cells, or they are called as supporting cells. So the main impulsive cells are neurons, and neuroglia are non-conductive cells, but they are called as supporting cells. Now we'll study the structure of this neuron. Now, neuron is made up of two main body parts. First, which you can see, this structure is called as the cyton. That means cell body. Cell body is called as cyton. And the tail-like structure which you can see here, this is called as axon. Now, what this cyton or cell body shows, you can see these branches, right? So these branches are called as dendrons, and each branch is again divided into smaller branches, that is called as dendrites. Whereas axon, in most of the cases, is unbranched. Sometimes it can be branched. Only one branch can be seen. So this axon is the uh, elongated single unbranched generally structure, and that ends into smaller branch like structures, that is called as telodendron. Now see, this is the dendron, this cyton, that is the cell body, is made up of the branch structures called as dendrons. Each branch is showing again smaller branches called as dendrites, and the axon. So the entire neuron is made up of cyton and axon. Cyton shows the branches called dendrons, and the axon the long singular unbranched structure. Now what you can see in the cyton or the cell body, you can see the centrally placed oval shaped nucleus, and that is surrounded by cytoplasm. But in this case, that is in the nervous tissue or the neurons, you need to remember the names, that like muscle says the outermost layer, that is called as sarcolemma, but here it is called as neurilemma, as it is related to the nervous tissue or the neuron. The outer layer is called as neurilemma. The cytoplasm of the neuron, that means cell body of this or the cyton, you can say this cyton or cell body, that cytoplasm is called as neuroplasm. Remember, the words come as per the name of that particular part. So centrally placed oval shaped nucleus surrounded by cytoplasm, which is called as neuroplasm, and that surrounded by, or it is enclosed by the neurilemma, and these branches are called as dendrons. And the other end, that is the another end of the axon ends into again branch structures, that which gives the appearance little but similar to that of the dendrons or the cyton, that is called as telodendron. So this is the terminal part or the end part of the axon, which is seen like the root branches. So that roots which are branched, such type of structure is called as the telodendron. Okay, then when we study that this axon, you can see the cells of the axon, they are also showing the presence of nucleus. Somewhat it is shifted at one side, and this axon is also covered by the whatever the neurilemma we are using here. The word for the axon can be used as axolemma, and the like cytoplasm of the cyton, what we call here neuroplasm, here exoplasm can be used, this word. Now this, just remember these two important things, that the entire neuron is made up of dendron and axon. Now one more thing you need to remember in that is the axon, which you can see, it looks like the cells attached to each other, where the nucleus oval shaped, little bit shifted at one side, and you can see the gaps in between these cells. These cells are called as Schwann cells, whereas the gaps between them, these are called a node of Ranvier. So the nodes in between the neighboring cells, that is the gap or the junction of the two neighboring cells, or the gap between the two neighboring cells of the axon, that part is called as node of Ranvier. Okay, then sometimes these Schwann cells, they are covered by the neurilemma as well as the fatty tissue or fats, that is called as myelin. That myelin is nothing but the fat structure. So when this is covered by myelin, that these axons are called as myelinated nerve fibers or myelinated axon, and or also called as medullated nerve fiber. So myelin is a sheath. Myelin is a sheath. So neurilemma or axolemma is covered by the fats, and that is made up of myelin. So that is called as, the nerve fiber is called as myelinated nerve fiber. When it is not there, then it is called as non-myelinated nerve fiber. Or the another name for this as medullated nerve fiber or non-medullated nerve fiber. Then one more thing you have to remember in that case, when the myelin sheath is present, that gives the appearance of white structure. So whitish, they give the appearance of white color. When they are not, myelin is absent, then it looks grayish in color. But generally, myelin is very important, and it helps. Even the node of Ranvier is also having very important role, where the fast or quick movement of the nerve impulses takes place. That means the nerve impulses jump from one node to the another node, so that quick movement or the delivery of the impulse takes place. So this is what about the structure of neurons. So neurons are the functional units of nervous tissue. These are electrically excitable cells which receive, initiate, and transmit impulses. Okay, when a neuron is stimulated, an electric disturbance, that is the action potential, is generated, which swiftly travels along its plasma membrane. That means along its plasma membrane means, this plasma membrane in case of neuron is called as neurilemma. In case of axon, it can be called as axolemma, or that is covered by the sheath, that is called as myelin sheath, that is the fat cells, fatty sheath. So a neuron usually consists of a cell body with one or many dendrites and a single axon, as I told you just now. So made up of cyton and axon. Cyton is nothing but the cell body. Cell body is called as cyton or perikaryon or soma. Soma means body. Cyton is also cell body, and perikaryon means what? Peri means which surrounds, peripheral. What? That is carrion. Carrion is nucleus. So these are the names of same. That is the cyton or cell body or soma or soma, and perikaryon. Peri, that is peripheral or which surrounds. Carrion, that is nucleus. Okay. Cytoplasm has Nissls bodies, neurofibrils, and lipofuscin granules. So this cytoplasm, that means which is called in case of nerve fiber or nerve neuron, that is neuroplasm, what it contains? Nissls bodies. These are nothing but the granules like structures made up of proteins. Okay, neurofibrils and lipofuscin granules. So this cytoplasm or the neuroplasm contains Nissls bodies and neurofibrils, which are very important. Nissal's bodies represent RER, that is the site of protein synthesis. RER means what? Rough endoplasmic reticulum. And you know that you have learned in the cell structure and organization. What is the role of RER? They are responsible for the protein synthesis. They provide the site. They are the site of the protein synthesis where protein is synthesized. So Nissal's bodies, or they are in the form of granular structures, which are nothing but the proteins are produced. They are the protein parts. So Nissal's bodies are nothing but the RER, which are the sites for the protein synthesis. Lipofuscin granules are the products of cellular wear and tear, accumulating in lysosomes with age. Means whatever the a part of the cellular products are produced, wear and tear mechanism is what? Formation, and then something is formed, and then unwanted part is then what it is done? It is disposed of. So this type of mechanism that is done by the lysozymes, that means they are most important for digestion of the substances which they release the enzymes, different types of digestive enzymes. The nucleus is a group of cell bodies in the central nervous system, and ganglion, group of cell bodies in the peripheral nervous system. So what are these dendrites? There are several short branched processes. These are all called as dendrites. They also contain Nissal's bodies and neurofibrils. They conduct nerve impulses towards the cell body, that is afferent processes. Now try to understand what is afferent and what is afferent. Afferent generally which receive, which are entering or which are receiving. So they are considered to be afferent processes. These are all dendrites. They are considered to be receiving or impulses. That means they conduct the impulses, they receive the impulses towards the cell body. Now, what is the axon? That is long, single, cylindrical process that originates from a region of the cyton called axon hillock. Now, I tell you in this diagram what exactly that axon hillock. Now, this is the entire structure called as cyton, which gives the branched parts, that is the dendrons. And when it starts forming the axon, it converts into axon. This part is little bit in bulging nature, and then it becomes narrow and converts into axon. So that part from where the axon starts or originates, that region is called as axon hillock. That is little bit bulging in nature, and then it becomes narrow and converts into axon. Plasma lemma of axon is called as axolemma, as I told you. Like neurilemma, the part of neuron that is axon, we can consider the plasma membrane or the plasma lemma of axon as axolemma, whereas cytoplasm of the axon can be called as axoplasm, which contains neurofibrils. So these are the specific words used. However, Nissal's bodies are absent in axon. Nissal's bodies are present only in this region of cyton. That means cytoplasm of the cell body, or the, you can say, neuriplasm. This is called neuriplasm, that contains Nissal's granules, which are absent in axoplasm. An axon may give rise to collateral branches. Distally, it branches into many fine filaments called telodendria or telodendrons. That means the end of the axon. As I told you, that this part where the axon terminates, gets terminated, where it ends, it gives the branched appearance like roots which are branched. So that is also called as arborization. Arborization is nothing but arborea is the root-like structure. Arborea nothing but the root-like structure, which gives the formation of root-like structure, that is called as arborization. And that means the axon, when it gets terminated, when it ends, that gives the appearance of branch root structures, that is called as telodendron. Okay, so telodendron, they are very important where for the synaptical complex, for the synaptic knobs or terminal buttons, they are called as. So telodendria end in bulb-like structures called synaptic knobs or terminal buttons, and synaptic knobs possess synaptic vesicles containing chemicals called neurotransmitters. Now, what are these neurotransmitters? Or I just tell you with the help of this diagram only. When see, this is the entire structure of neuron, which shows cyton and axon. Cyton shows the presence of dendrons and dendrites, whereas axon, it terminates into telodendrons, right? Which is similar to dendrites. So that's why telodendrons. Now it shows the presence of such knob-like structures. So these are called as terminal knobs, or they are also what is the name called telodendria, that they are called as synaptic knobs. Now, what is that synaptic knob? Synaptic knobs means these knob-like structures. That means the end part of the telodendron, it gives the appearance of knob-like structure. Now, what are these points which are forming the pairing with the neighboring dendrites of the neighboring neuron? Means here in this telodendron part, that means the knobs, they get pairing, or they get attached with the neighboring neuron. Which part of the neuron? This part, that is the dendrite part of the neighboring neuron. And how they then, these knobs, when they form a complex with the the dendrites of the neighboring nerve or the neuron, then the impulses are transmitted. So these are the points of transmission, and that when they pair, or when they come in contact with each other, then that is called a synaptical complex or synapsis. That is the pairing. Synapsis means pairing, or they get attached to each other and the impulse is transmitted. So from one neuron to the another neuron, from telodendron to dendrites, and then from again dendrites to the axon to the telodendron, and then from the telodendron to the dendrites of the neighboring neuron. In this way, the nerves are passed through, transmitted. So these are called as synaptic vesicles. So synaptic knobs possess synaptic vesicles containing chemicals called neurotransmitter. As it is related to neurons, so they are called as neurotransmitters. Axon transmits nerve impulse away from the cyton. That means efferent process to an interneuron or neuromuscular junction called synapse. Just now I mentioned synapse is nothing but the pairing of these two parts. What are these two parts? Telodendron of one nerve to the dendron of the neighboring nerve. What are the telodendrons? At the end of the axon, which are branched and which are giving the bulging appearance like a knob. So these knobs get paired with the dendrites of the neighboring nerves, and through that junction, the impulse is passed or transmitted in the form of neuron. In the neuron, it is taking place. So neurotransmitters, these are called as. So neuromuscular junctions, these are called. These are the junctions where the impulse is transmitted through this pairing or the synapse, through this junction. So this is very important. So axons are considered to be efferent processes, and dendrons are considered to be afferent processes. Efferent in the sense this impulse is carried away from the body. It is passed away to the next one. So that is efferent. Afferent is receiving. So who is receiving? Dendrites of the neuron, they are receiving. So they are afferent. And through telodendron part of the axon, they are transmitted, carried away to the neighboring neuron. So they are carried away, so they are called as efferent processes. So these two parts are very important in the structure of neuron, where dendrites are receiving processes. They are called as afferent processes, and axon, that means telodendron part of the axon, that is carrying away the impulses, that is distributing, transmitting, carrying away the impulses to the neighboring dendron, sorry, neighboring dendron, that is the neuron, that is called as efferent processes. So this is very important you remember. Now, types of neurons based on the types of processes. That is very important and very easy also to understand. Now, in your textbook, you keep your diagram 10.19, that is nervous tissue. Depending on the type of, what you can see, the presence of the processes, they are called as unipolar, bipolar and multipolar. Now, if you see this diagram, in this diagram, you can see this is the single one, that is the cyton, and from the cyton itself, this axon is produced, and that one of the part of the axon is branched, resulting into this is the terminal end, that is called as the telodendron. So, from a single cell body, the this axon is produced only, that is which results into the terminal end, that is called as unipolar. Uni is single, single polar, unipolar or monopolar. It is there unipolar or monopolar neuron. It has a single process originating from cyton. Both axon and dendron arise from cyton at one point. You can see in this diagram both dendron, these are the this is the dendron, branches, dendrites, and the axon originating from a single cell body, that is one point. So that is called as unipolar. Here also the same thing. Here from the cell body, that is a cyton, this dendron, that means these are all dendrites. This is a single dendron, and this is the axon, which is terminating in terminal ends. These are the knobs, right? So axon is produced. So from the cell body, only a single process, and dendrons and the axons are produced. So this is called as unipolar or monopolar neuron. Now the second one is what? Bipolar. Bipolar, here it has also, it has two processes. You can see a single dendron and an axon are given off from opposite poles of the cyton, where you can see in this diagram, this is one pole of the cyton, this is the another pole of the cyton. So one pole is giving rise to dendron and the another pole is giving rise to axon. So this is giving the appearance of two poles. So this is called as bipolar. So in this diagram, you can see this is the cell body. One is giving rise to dendron and the other one is giving rise to the axon at the opposite side. So this dendron itself is branching into dendrites. So this is what they bring about the transmission of special senses like light, sight, smell, taste, hearing, etc. For example, neurons of retina of eye, olfactory epithelium, etc. So eye muscles, neurons, as well as ear, as well as this here all listening, taste, smell, sight, all these which are related to this are of bipolar type. So these neurons are of bipolar type, sensory, most of these, right? Then multipolar. Cyton is star shaped. You can see the cyton is star shaped and gives out more than two processes. You can see many processes here, dendrites, right? And one of the dendrites elongates to form axon, right? So there is only one axon and remaining are dendrons. Axon initiates from a funnel-shaped area called axon hillock. Is this area, funnel-shaped area? This is called as axon hillock. Here is the multipolar neuron, where the cyton shows many branches, which are called as dendrons, which again gives rise to smaller branches called as dendrites. And one of the dendrons gives rise to elongated cylindrical structures, the branch single, that is called as axon. So this is as per the number of, based on the number of processes given out from cyton, neurons are classified as unipolar, bipolar, and multipolar neurons. Now we'll see these are same things I just explained. Sensory neurons having a single process arising from the cell body, which divides into two branches, one of which acts as dendrite and the other one axon. Soma is found in the dorsal root ganglion of the nerve, the spinal nerve. Also called as pseudo-unipolar neuron. Pseudo means false. Means it gives the appearance of unipolar, but it looks sometimes to some extent bipolar also. So this is called as pseudo-unipolar neuron. Bipolar have two axons and one dendrite. So where the bipolar are found? Retina of the eye, sensory cells of internal ear, olfactory sensory epithelium related to eye, ear, and nose, all these sense organs. Then multipolar neurons have one axon and two or more dendrites. Most neurons in the body are of multipolar type. Now, myelinated axon, just I told you, depending on the presence or absence of myelin sheath, they are also called as myelinated or medulated, and non-myelinated or non-medulated, one and the same. See, this is one more very clearly shown in this diagram, as this is the axon, and the from where this axon originates, this bulging part is called as axon hillock, and you can see that axon is covered by the myelin sheath, that is called, these are called as myelinated axons, and these are the Schwann cells. And here the gap between the two neighboring Schwann cells, that is called as node of Ranvier, and these are the terminal buttons or the knobs which I explained in the previous diagram. In myelinated fiber of PNS, that means peripheral nervous system, the plasma lemma of a Schwann cell wraps around an internode of axon. The layers of Schwann cell contains myelin with a high proportion of lipids. The outermost layer that contains cytoplasm and nucleus is called as neurilemma. I have already explained this part, right? In the central nervous system, the glial cells called oligodendrocytes, that is myelinate axons. A single oligodendrocyte can myelinate many axons. The portion of the myelinated nerve fiber, that is axon, devoid of myelin sheath are called node of Ranvier. So I told you, in between the Schwann cells, there is the gap where the myelin sheath is not seen. These are called as nodes of Ranvier. And the gap between the two adjacents is called as internode. So, internodes. Myelinated nerve fibers occur in white matter of CNS and in most peripheral nerves. CNS is central nervous system. Non-myelinated, so second type is non-myelinated axon, which are commonly found in the gray matter of CNS and post-ganglionic neurons of the autonomous nervous system. Where they are located, it is mentioned just. Depending on their function, they are of again different types. First is sensory, the word itself suggests, which are related to the sense organs. These sense organs first receive this impulse. So these are also called as afferent neurons. So sensory neurons carry sensory impulses from the respective sensory organs to the central nervous system. Now here in this diagram, it is shown that this is the hot object, and when your skin comes in contact with this hot object, what happens to that? That is received by your skin, that means the touch, that is the pain receptor of the skin, and then what is done from that part of the body, it is received or it is passed, received by that sense organ, that means the skin, and passed to the central nervous system. So afferent neurons, they are related to the sense organs, means sense organs first receive. So afferent neurons are what? They receive the impulses or that particular sense in the form of impulses from the receptors, that means sensory organs, and they carry it to the central nervous system. This is very important, remember, from where to where. Then motor neurons, they are called as efferent neurons. So what is the role of efferent neurons? They carry motor impulses from central nervous system to the effector organ, such as muscles, glands, etc. That means now the first skin, that is the sensory organ that is receiving the impulse, that the object is hot, that impulse is transferred by the afferent or the sensory neurons to the central nervous system, and from the central nervous system immediately what is to be done, that action, that impulse is passed back from the central nervous system to the sensory organ, that means the skin here, that it should be taken away from that but hot object. So that means what? Motor neurons, they carry motor impulses from central nervous system to the effector organ, that means the muscles, glands, etc. What is the effector organ here? That is the skin. The finger is coming in contact with the hot object, that is the skin is the sensory organ. So to the whatever the effect is given to that particular part, that is the effector organ. So from central nervous system immediately that response or that impulse is carried to the effector organ. It is carried, it is moved, so the word is motor. Movement is seen from where? From the central nervous system. So effector neurons or motor neurons, which are considered to be the carrying away impulses, what where they are carrying away to the effector organ. So effector organs, they are carried, these impulses are carried from central nervous system to the effector organs such as muscles, glands, etc. And the third category, that is interneurons, they are present in central nervous system and they connect sensory neurons and motor neurons. Mixed type of nervous system, this is also called as mixed type of neurons, which are performing both the things, and the communication or the communication between the two neurons, that is the sensory and motor, that is afferent and efferent neurons, that is done by the interneurons, which are present in central nervous system. So as per the function, they are classified as efferent neurons and interneurons or associate neurons, which are located between the sensory and motor neurons, and these perform processing, integration of sensory impulses, and activate appropriate motor neuron to generate motor impulse. So that communication, association, processing, integration, everything is done by the mixed type of neurons, or you can say interneurons. So depending on the uh, as per the function, they are of this type, efferent and interneurons. Depending on the presence or absence of the myelin sheath, they are classified as myelinated and non-myelinated. And depending on the presence of the nature of the whether it is the uh, only single polar or bipolar or tripolar, that means depending on the number of processes given out from the cyton, neurons are classified as three types, that is unipolar, bipolar, and multipolar polar. So this is all about the nervous tissue. So I hope you have understood nervous tissue, and we have completed this chapter, means all the types of tissues here. So I will revise it again, this part of nervous tissue, and then the structure I will just revise about this is the cell body, that is cyton, and the axon. So neuron is made up of cell body called cyton and the elongated uh, structure, cylindrical part, that is axon. Cyton gives the branches, shows the branches called dendrons, and these are again branched into smaller, these are called as dendrites. And what it contains, what this cell body or the cyton contains: centrally placed nucleus surrounded by the cytoplasm, and this cytoplasm is called as neuroplasm, and which is covered by the layer that is called as neurolemma, and in case of axon, that's plasma lemma is called as axolemma, and the cytoplasm is called as exoplasm in case of axon. Okay, so this is about, then what else it contains the cytoplasm. This is granules, which is nothing but the RER, responsible for the protein synthesis. So this is about the nervous tissue.